Hey everybody, Kevin here. Every year we get, around this time of year, start getting a lot of questions about tips for hunting bobcats. I don't claim to be a professional. I don't claim to even be all that great at it. What I will say is I have been successful. Every year I've been targeting bobcats except for one. And that year, actually Josh was running the caller. We did successfully call one in, did not get a shot at it. Every other year that I've hunted bobcats, I've been successful so far. So that being said, wanted to do some tips for everybody, try and get a little bit of everything in there about my experiences with bobcat hunting. First thing I wanted to cover though is the laws for hunting bobcats in Michigan. First and foremost, seasons. Seasons vary depending on which unit you are in. They go from January 1st to March 1st in units A, B, and C. January 1st through February 1st in Unit D. January 1st through January 20th in Unit G, and January 1st through January 11th in the newly created Unit H. Each person in Michigan is allowed 2 bobcats. Your second bobcat kill tag is only valid on private land in Unit A. If you don't know what that is, it's up in the UP. To get a bobcat license, you have to have a fur bearer's license, and then you can get a kill tag. Kill tags are free. All you have to do is go to any licensing area and ask for them. You will get one that covers all the units, and you have to get that by October 24th. That's the cutoff time. As you get close to season, also take into account that you cannot hunt bobcats in Michigan in the dark. Bobcat hunting in Michigan is limited strictly to daytime. Keep that in mind when you're thinking about the areas you want to hunt in. Now let's talk about what areas I like to look for bobcat. In my experience, which I want to say all the total, I've called in over 30 bobcats. The bulk of those have been not in season. That being said, in an area where I call them in, obviously out of season, I go target that area when they are in season. But what I look for is thick areas with a break near them that opens up. Swamp edges, creek beds, real thick cover that opens up into hardwoods or a field. Anything like that is what I look for. Usually around January time, we have some snow on the ground. You can start trying to identify some tracks, finding out where they're hanging out. If you can find tracks, let's say December, prior to season, and you see fresh sign, those are the areas you're going to want to target. One of the things about cats is that they are very visual animals. They don't seem to be affected by wind as much, so I don't worry about wind direction quite as much. That being said, if I'm predator hunting, I'm trying to always pay attention to that wind, because you never know if there's going to be a coyote or a fox in the area as well. But it's not like when you're hunting for coyote or fox that you really have to pay attention to that downwind area specifically, because that's where the animal's going to come. In my experience, bobcats pretty much come straight in from wherever they were. One thing about bobcats, the bulk of cats that I've called in come in slowly. As you can see in this video that's playing in the background, bobcats will often come in to where they can see the source of the sound, and a lot of times they will just sit and look at it. I've heard people say bobcats are described as being fragile. They really don't want a confrontation, or they don't want to scrap with a bigger animal. And if they're coming to prey distress, that's always a possibility for them. Hence, they tend to be a little bit cautious. That's just my theory and based off what I've seen and heard and read. The bobcat you see in this video playing right now, I got to watch for probably 20 minutes. And initially I caught a glimpse of movement on this cat. I didn't know it was a cat at the time. I thought it was a coyote. Caught a glimpse of movement, thought it was going to be a coyote, kept watching the downwind side where I figured a coyote would come in. Nothing came in. And I just happened to notice something different colored on that hillside across this creek bed. When I zoomed in, looked through my scope, I could see it was a cat. started recording. And the cat stayed there that whole time. And if you watch some of the video, you'll see it goes up and down, licks his paws, just hangs out watching. And I had a decoy going along with my Fox Pro Fusion. That cat stayed there for about 20 minutes, like I said, until I actually got up and left the set. During that time, I played a variety of sounds. You can hear some of them in the video. Didn't matter. That cat just stayed there and looked. Quite often, that's been my experience. They'll come out of that thick cover to where they can see the source of that sound, and they'll sit and look, or they'll try and get to a position where they can see that sound and sit and look. There's going to be some videos coming up soon that you'll see from my hunts, and most of those, matter of fact, yeah, all but one, show that. You'll see that the cat is stationary and it's looking towards the source of the sound. So with all that in mind, when I'm looking to set up for bobcats, I want to be close to that thick cover. And by close, I mean, 100 yards max. And I'm going to set my collar and decoy in between myself and that cover. I want to be able to see as much around me as I possibly can and be able to shoot all that. But I'm going to be focusing on that cover where I think the cats are going to come from. I also try to do two things. One, I hide the collar, put it behind a log, put it in a tuft of grass, whatever I can. I don't want the cat to be able to see that from a long ways off. That being said, I like to use a decoy. I use a Mojo Critter decoy, but I will partially hide that decoy as well. Put it behind a stump so just the tuft of the spinner is sticking up, or in some tall grass so you can just see that. What you want is that motion to catch their attention. If you do use a decoy like that, you really got to watch for a cat sitting there just looking at that. That's why I think a lot of hunters aren't successful with cats, is because they don't look for that cat just sitting there. They're expecting it to come walking in or charging in, running in. In my experience, that doesn't happen very often. I have had it happen a couple times, but more often than not, they come in, sit down, and look. And that's what you have to look for. You have to be looking for that something that's just out of place, or it's in the brush of that cat sitting there looking at the source of the sound or your decoy. So keeping that in mind, when you place your collar and your decoy, put it such that the cat is going to have to expose himself a little bit to be able to see it. That's the idea as well behind hiding and calling the decoy. Is you want to set it up so that the cat is going to have to maneuver himself to a spot that gives you a shot opportunity while he's trying to get a view of that call and decoy. When you set up, just like hunting any other predator, I try and be quiet when I approach my stand. I usually sit on the ground, and one thing is important with cats, and I mentioned this earlier, is cats are very visual animals. They pick up on motion in a heartbeat. If they see something they don't like, they're not going to hang around long. One of the videos I will show you here as we're talking is from my hunt 2 seasons ago, and if it wasn't for the snow on the ground, I probably would have never seen that cat. All I seen was the top of its head from about here up, peeking over the hill, looking towards where that collar was. I happened to see it because of the snow in the background, and was able to turn and get a shot on that cat. But as you can see, that cat picks up on my movement really fast, and I had to make a fast shot to be able to make that kill shot on that cat. So that's something you have to keep in mind, is you don't want any extra movement. As much as possible, I try and get camoed in good, and I'm trying to stay as stationary as possible. I try and look more with my eyes, not so much turning my head. I don't use binoculars or a scanner most of the time because I don't want that extra movement. I want to be as still as possible because that cat will pick up on that movement. Now when it comes to sounds that I use for calling a cat, whether this is a hand call or whether you're using an electronic caller, I personally like to stick with small animal sounds like mouse, baby rabbit, higher pitched adult rabbit sounds. Bird sounds are an absolute favorite of mine. Most all of your major call sound producers have sounds that will work great for that. Tony Tebby has a huge selection. Fox Pro has their own library. Rick Paulette has his library. I'm sure Icotech does as well. All of them have small, high-pitched animal sounds and rabbit sounds. And bird sounds, sorry. I will usually sit on a set for up to an hour, and I keep the call going almost that whole time. I'll switch up sounds and I'll switch volume. On the Fox Pro, I will use Fox Fusion and mix a couple sounds up, or I'll use Fox Motion to make the sound appear to be moving from one speaker to the other, the way Fox Motion works. I will use those features, but I keep those sounds going almost the entire time. Another thing is to pay close attention to the other wildlife in the area. Kind of like when you're coyote hunting and you're watching deer and all of a sudden the deer start looking at something or they run off. It's a good indication that a coyote is in the area and coming to your call. With cats, you want to pay attention to birds. I've had birds give away cats many times. I've had crows follow cats in, making a bunch of noise. I've had blue jays do it. I've had ducks give away that a cat was coming in one time. So pay attention to the other animals in the area. If all of a sudden you hear a ruckus coming from an area, especially from birds, it's a pretty good indication that there's going to be a cat in the area. You want to keep your eyes peeled. Another guy I know that knows a whole lot more about this than I have has been kind enough to share some of his experience with me in terms of calling. Cats aren't as much like coyotes in terms of when Josh and I called in that cat, I think it was 3 years ago now, he called in the cat. It popped up in front of me. It was actually off to my right. I had my gun on the sticks aiming this way. It popped up within probably 10 yards of me on the right, and it was looking right at me when it popped up over this hill. I had no time to get on it and swing for a shot, and it took off. Well, we figured, oh, we're busted. We're done. And this gentleman told me no. He says, go 50 yards, 25 yards in, set up, call again. It's not like a coyote where you're going to spook them, they're going to go to the next county, and you're never going to see them again right then, as often is the case. With cats, don't be afraid to try and move, relocate, set up again. Or, if you know the cat's in the area, come back to that same area next day, try again. My cat that I got 2 years ago, we had went out and called that area. We had seen fresh sign, didn't see anything. We called 2 or 3 spots, but I knew we had fresh sign. Went back the next day, called that cat in and was able to take it. So if you are lucky enough to get a cat, then the work begins. First thing is you have to legally tag your cat. To legally tag a cat in Michigan, you have to affix your kill tag through the lip and out through the eye socket or through the lower jaw. That is per Michigan's regulations. Any other method of tagging is not permissible according to Michigan's DNR. So the first thing is you want to get that cat tagged. After you get it tagged, you have to turn it into, or you have to register it with the DNR check-in station. I believe it's by the end of the season. Most of the time I've had to call and make an appointment to go check in my cat. So that being said, when you check in your cat, how do you present the cat to them? They want the entire carcass and they want the hide. It's preferable to have it skinned prior to taking it in to have them check it in. When the DNR checks your cat, they're going to ask for where you got it, the method you used, whether it was public or private land. They are going to take the skull and they will affix a seal to the skull and to your hide. It's called a CITES tag. Later on you can look up that tag number on the Michigan DNR website and it will give you the age as determined by the Michigan DNR laboratories. So I skin mine prior to taking it to the DNR. Remember, if you want to get a mount done of your cat, don't cut it down the middle of the belly like you would a deer or something like that to skin it. Tube skin it, or talk to your taxidermist about what way he would prefer you have it skinned, or have them skin it prior to you taking it in to have it checked in. The best thing to do is, if you can't check it in right away, is to freeze it. Make sure you freeze it in such a way that when you take it to the DNR check station, the officer, the technician at the DNR check station is able to access your tag as it's affixed to the animal and be able to get everything. If it's frozen solid like a rock and they can't get to it, that creates a problem for them. It's going to take more time. I mean, I've had that happen kind of once, and basically they just ran it under warm water until they got it thawed enough they could actually access what they needed to get. The DNR says you cannot get your skull back. I've talked to people at the DNR offices, and they've said you can request a skull. They can't guarantee if you'll get one back, and they can't guarantee it will be yours if you can get one. So just keep that in mind as well. So briefly, that's my tips on hunting bobcats here in Michigan. Good luck to everyone that's going out this season. Hope you have success. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Either comment on this post or feel free to send us a message. Thank you.